your background, just state your name and tell us a little bit about your company.
So my name is Jason Della Rocca. I'm the co-founder of Execution Labs, which is an early stage investor in game studios. So we provide seed funding for game startups and independent studios, as well as mentorship and coaching to help those startup studios survive.
And what are you looking for? What type of project, what type of level are you looking for?
Yeah, we've done about 25 investments so far in game studios across Canada, the United States, and Western Europe. We're looking for primarily the team. I mean, we're investing in the company, so we're looking at the long-term potential for that team to grow the value of the company. Now, of course, these are game studios, so they also have to be making really cool games that we find are interesting and innovative and have the chance to be commercially successful so they can build a successful company off of those games. But primarily, as a studio investor, as a company level investor, we're looking at teams, co-founders that can build and grow a great game company.
So a company would have to have a track record, at least locally, for you?
Well, a track record for the company is not usually the case because we're an early stage investor, which means that we're often the first funding that arrives in the studio. Now, normally, that studio is made up from experienced developers who maybe worked at other studios that had a big track record, or that they individually had worked on, other successful games, but then they're starting a new company together and they need some funding and support to start the new company. So usually the studios that we invest in as a studio is relatively kind of virgin. It's a new studio, but the individuals running that studio do tend to have a track record and a certain amount of experience, and that's largely what we're banking on.
You have not worked with emerging economy, Latin America, Caribbean?
We've looked at potential investments in South America, Latin America, as well as Southeast Asia and some other regions, so let's say more developing regions. Oftentimes the companies from a business perspective aren't sort of at the same level as you see in the more developed regions. So they may have, good art, good design, good talent, but their ability to really think about the design of the business is lacking in many of those regions. And then additionally, as an early stage investor, it's quite difficult to do very early stage investing in remote regions because the additional sort of localization and translation and just the distance, as well as the additional legal and tax fees to figure out how to invest in Argentina or Brazil or some other regions are quite challenging as an external entity to invest into. And when you're doing early stage investment, the legal cost to figure that out is just too high. So because the sort of the entrepreneurial level isn't quite there yet, we looked, but we didn't find anything yet that was of interest.
Do you see a role in that, facilitating some of that, or helping individuals or companies get to that level for Alex and Alex members?
So I also do consulting work, and a lot of that is around entrepreneurship, mentorship, as well as investment preparedness. And I will often work with governments and economic development agencies who bring me into their region in order to coach the smaller companies that do exist. So they're not ready for investment from an entity like Execution Labs, but they do need coaching, they need help on their business strategy, they need some mentorship with regards to their entrepreneurial skills. So I will often travel to these more, call it, developing regions and do that and sort of help boost them to get them to a higher level.
So based on your experience, what would be the dreaming challenge companies in a region like ours typically have?
Yeah, I mean, so the three challenges for game companies really are global in nature. Game companies tend to be focused on the game, right? The design, the art, the creation of their great, their masterpiece, and they'll often forget about the marketing side. And so one of the big sort of challenges of game studios is to put as much emphasis on the marketing strategy as the actual game production. So that's true of game developers everywhere, because they're artists and designers and programmers. They're not marketers, they're not business people by their very nature. So that's one part. The other, somewhat related to the marketing, is the idea of building a fan base or a community around your company, around your games, and really thinking about what you're doing as a means to generate a fan base, a following. And if you're able to do that, then you achieve a much greater level of sustainability for the company. And then with regards to funding, oftentimes game developers around the world don't understand the difference between funding a project or funding their company. They just think they need some money, or they have a problem that's needing money, and they go out into the world to look for a solution to that problem without fully understanding what the opportunity is that they're selling, and whether that opportunity is funding the project or funding the company. And that's kind of an initial sort of mistake that they make right away without understanding the difference between the two. Yeah, well, I mean, if I'm funding a company, I need to have a roadmap. I need to understand what's my path to growth as a company, its long term, etc. That's much different than a single project that I need funding to finish the production on that project and then sort of give a share of the revenue of that project. It's a much different sort of framing of the opportunity, a much different need. Who you go seek funding from is very different, whether you're funding a company or funding a project. The deal terms, the structure, everything is completely different. And if you don't understand that, you're going to waste a lot of time talking to the wrong people about the wrong things, and then you'll never solve your lack of money problem.
So if I'm a young developer and I want the best thing would be, like you said, develop my few games, try it out, put it out there, get feedback, and then build on that?
I mean, so if you want to build a game studio, the first thing you need to understand is that designing the business is as important as designing the game or games. And already understanding and accepting that, you're already going to be in much better shape than most game developers who are just looking at the game. So I mean, games is an art form. I mean, it's like painting or music. I mean, you could use games as a canvas to express yourself and just paint your own game and put it to the world. But you cannot expect that just sort of painting your game and putting it out in the world will achieve commercial success. So if you want to achieve commercial success and build a thriving business, then you have to design the business as much as you design the game. And so that's the starting point. Then from there, well, of course, there's many other sort of things and advices that you would have to do to succeed.